Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed. Along with my partners, Pete Sardis, the professor, who has a finance and business background, and George Tragos, my dad, and the consigliere, a criminal defense giant, we can answer any questions you have.
Hi everybody, Pete Sardis here for the Lawyer You Know, and today we are here talking about Aiden Fucci. A lot's happened in his case since the last time we did a video, and he is ready for trial. I'll give you all the ins and outs of what's been happening, but before that, if you enjoy the video, please give me a thumbs up. If you're enjoying this series, please subscribe to our channel, and as always, please leave me questions and comments below. All right, let's do a little bit of a recap. If you recall, Aiden Fucci was 14 years old when he was charged with the murder of Tristan Bailey up in St. Johns County, Florida, which is in the St. Augustine, Jacksonville area. What had happened was they had found Tristan's body. She'd been stabbed 114 times. And in the course of the investigation, Aiden Fucci's DNA was discovered on Tristan Bailey. The next day, he was arrested for that crime. And if you remember, Crystal Smith, who is Aiden Fucci's mother, was captured on their own home videotape washing Aiden Fucci's jeans, which allegedly he was wearing at the time that he murdered Tristan Bailey. So what happened? He was actually charged in adult court with the murder of Tristan Bailey, and it's been kind of a roller coaster ride for him over the course of the last year while he is preparing to go to trial. If you recall, the last video we did, Aiden was actually captured at his pre-trial in the video surveillance of the court system. He was talking about seeing demons and hearing voices and all the things that we believe would require a lawyer to have a psychiatric evaluation of their client done to ensure that he is competent to stand trial. Up to now, that has not happened. In fact, Aiden Fucci's gone through 3 lawyers now, one of them which was a private attorney that his family had hired for him, who has withdrawn. He went back to the public defender, and now we have a new public defender that has been appointed, all of whom say they're not going to seek any evaluation for him regarding his competence to stand trial, meaning that they believe he's perfectly fine to stand trial for this case. All right, what's happening? May 5th, Aiden Fucci was back in court with his lawyers because the judge at this point has scheduled a trial date. The next big hearing we're going to have is on October 26th, and the trial as we stand right now is scheduled for November 7th through the 18th, an entire 2 weeks for that trial. Now, we'll see if that actually happens that way because the lawyers had indicated at the last pretrial that they both had some big murder trial that they were preparing for in March, so they wouldn't be able to do a lot of the depositions that are necessary, meaning the sworn statements of the potential witnesses, until after that trial resolved, meaning now April and May. It seems like based on their representations of the court on May 5th that they're going to be ready to go to trial, but you know, if you've done a trial like this, you realize there's no guarantees. You don't know if something's going to surprise you. You don't know if you're going to have witnesses that fail to appear or that the investigation yields additional information that requires additional vetting, which is not going to be possible to be done within this time frame between now and May and in November. But again, we shall see how this comes together. Aiden Fucci's changed a little bit since he's been sitting in the Duval County Jail. If you recall the video footage of him when he was in the police car, was very flippant, and he was kind of playing cute and tough guy, but that's changed. His demeanor's become very quiet. He's become more stoic now that he's in court. I think the gravity of the situation has really kind of hit him finally. What we did notice, which was interesting, was he has a new tattoo. Apparently he had a cross tattooed on his middle finger when he walked into court on May 5th, which again is probably a gift of one of his jailhouse friends, because obviously he's 15 years old sitting in jail. You really can't legally get a tattoo, but he's got himself one. Some evidence inside of the court file reveals that Aiden Fucci's girlfriend had indicated to law enforcement that he had a history of telling her, at least, that he heard voices and the devil was telling him to kill people. So we are going to find out if that is going to be a defense that he raises during trial, meaning that he has some psychological issue that causes him to be predisposed to doing violent and terrible things. I'm not sure how they're going to do this without at least a psychiatric evaluation. Maybe they don't believe Aiden Fucci is incompetent to stand trial, but if they believe that he has some psychiatric or psychological disorder that predisposes him to committing crime, they have to notify the state about that condition, because if you're going to raise a psychiatric or psychological defect defense, you have to put that on notice so that the state or the court potentially has an opportunity to do an evaluation and make sure that they have the right to be able to cross-examine any psychiatric or psychological expert that gets put on the stand. Again, none of that has happened. That is on the court docket, and we shall see how this is going to go in November. One of the things that is a constant is that every one of Aiden Fucci's pretrial hearings, Tristan Bailey's family is there. They're there in mass, and they're there wearing normally a teal colored article of clothing, mostly shirts, because apparently that was Tristan Bailey's favorite color. They show up, they're, at least from what I've heard, respectful of the court and respectful of what's happening, but they are there, they are a show of force. They want to make it clear to Aiden Fucci that Tristan Bailey is not forgotten and that they are there in support of her every step of the way. We'll see how this trial comes together, because again, we're talking about 2 weeks. We'll see what the court does in allowing all of those people to come into the courtroom dressed in the exact same color. And again, the court normally will not shut down the courtroom unless there is some compelling reason that is supported by the interests of justice. Because it's a public courtroom, they're allowed to be in the courtroom. Any one of us could walk into that courtroom and sit down and watch any trial at any time, unless, of course, there is a minor child that is testifying, or the court has made a determination that the interest of justice compel the courtroom to be closed. Other than that, it's an open courtroom. But when you're talking about people showing up wearing a specific article of clothing, for example, we've seen family members come in with the face a portrait of their family member that is the victim in a case on their shirts. They'll wear a specific, bandana or a colored, armband of some sort just to show solidarity. The concern is how that affects Aiden Fucci's right to a fair trial when the jury sees an entire entourage of people dressed in the same color coming in support. The court may admonish Aiden Fucci's family to say, look, you can come, but you're not going to be able to all be dressed up in the same color. You're not going to be able to have portraits of the victim on your shirts, because at the end of the day, it causes serious concerns for the fairness of the proceedings against Aiden Fucci. Now, the next thing that I'm curious to see if it's going to happen is there is the possibility to be able to transfer this case to a different venue for trial. Normally, when you have highly publicized cases, what will happen is the prosecutors in the court will actually transfer the trial itself to a different location. So, for example, let's say a case in Jacksonville is so highly publicized that it's difficult to get a fair and impartial jury. The court can actually move the trial to Orlando or Tampa, Miami. You pick the other destination. Normally, they'll pick the closest venue possible that does not have that same set of biases against the defendant. Because again, remember, even though Tristan Bailey is the victim in this case, and she is obviously deceased and we're looking for justice for her, the reality is during the criminal trial, the rights of Aiden Fucci are paramount because he is the one being accused of murder. And the prosecution has to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt to a jury. And if that jury is not fair and impartial, and it causes a verdict that may be based on something other than the facts and the evidence, i.e. bias for the family of Tristan Bailey because they're there every day showing solidarity and it pulls on their heartstrings, or because the media presence has been so strong up in Jacksonville that they cannot get over the fact that Tristan Bailey is deceased, and they all believe that Aiden Fucci has committed the crime, even though they haven't heard any evidence yet, then that's not a fair trial for Aiden Fucci. So what's going to happen? They very well may move that trial to a different jurisdiction. I talked earlier about the trials being an open forum in Florida, and they are. But could the judge shut down the courtroom in order to have the trial? The answer to that question is the court has its discretion to shut down the courtroom at various times if the court believes that there is some compelling reason that would affect Aiden Fucci's right to a fair trial. A lot of times what the courts will do is they may shut down the courtroom for specific testimony or, for example, jury selection. And a lot of times, because we've had it here in some high-profile cases in the Tampa Bay area, where the judges have allowed us to do jury selection with individuals one by one. I will tell you, this is the most arduous and exhausting task, to go through jurors one by one. But the reason we have done that in the past is because you don't want the entire jury panel to get tainted by one juror saying something. Then the next juror getting up and saying, oh, I've heard that too. Yeah, I agree with that. The third juror gets up, says the same thing. By the time you get to the 30th or 40th person sitting in the venire box, meaning the prospective jurors, they're all tainted because they all believe what's happening since they've heard it from every juror before them. So the court might actually allow them to do jury selection privately, individually with the prospective jurors, and then be able to pick a jury based on those individual voir dire sessions. Again, super complicated, very exhausting for the lawyers, and of course, time consuming. So we'll see what the court does. But right now, the next pretrial is scheduled for the end of October. We'll see what happens between now and then. We'll let you know if anything major happens in between. But at this point, October is probably the next time we're going to hear something about this case. And at that point, the lawyers are going to tell the court whether they are ready for trial for November. And if they are, it is on and we're going to go forward. The truth, though, is his conduct has changed significantly since the first time we saw him in a police car until now. Again, a lot more calm, a lot more stoic. He's got his poker face on, and that's probably because he's getting lessons from the inmates at the jail, especially people that are older, are saying, look, man, you got some serious charges on your head. You don't want to be acting a fool out there. You know, those same inmates may have been the ones that told him, if they saw it on the news, man, all this stuff you're talking about, hearing voices and, you know, the devil made me do it. You got to be careful because they'll stick you in Chattahoochee, which is the name of this Florida State mental hospital. And you'll sit there until they believe you're better and able to go to trial. And you may be there for years before you may have a chance to go to trial. So I think there may be some words of wisdom and caution coming from those inmates. Now, are they also maybe egging him on to see if they can make him do something stupid, or are they potentially getting close to him in order to try to find a way to potentially testify against him for credit in their own cases? Absolutely. One of the things that we talk about with our own clients that are facing criminal sanctions, that are sitting in a county jail, is don't talk to anyone about your case. And the reason we say that is because when inmates get close to each other, their purpose sometimes is nefarious. And the purpose may be to call the prosecutor and say, hey, I am Aiden Fucci's bunkmate, and he was telling me that here's how he did it, here's where he did it, here's where the knife is stowed, and whatever, you know, set of facts may be that cause that person to now become a witness for the state against the defendant, or on the other side, looking for credit in their own cases and potentially making up a story that they're hoping to, you know, pawn off to a prosecutor who's willing to reduce their potential sentence and liability for their criminal charges in exchange. So again, something that we're watching in the jailhouse and seeing how that plays itself out. Now, Aiden Fucci is still looking at a possible sentence for first-degree murder, which is up to and including life if convicted. Now, there's no death penalty in this case because Florida case law is clear that you cannot seek the death penalty for a minor. But he could very well be looking at life. And if he's in fact convicted, he could potentially spend 25 years in prison before he is eligible to ask a judge to reconsider or reevaluate his sentence. So regardless of how you look at it, very stringent penalties, very serious risk on Aiden Fucci. So we shall see how this plays out. But for now, that's all we have. If you've enjoyed the episode, give me a thumbs up. If you're enjoying this series, please subscribe to our channel. And as always, if you have questions and comments, leave them down below. As soon as we know something, we'll be back.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.